you to the call today. This is Doug Mainers. I am Member Services Director for Connected Investors. On behalf of Ross Hamilton, our CEO, I want to welcome you to the call. We're glad that you're here. We're going to be getting started in just a few minutes, a few seconds, I should say. So get ready for a fantastic training here on how do I control the contract on a wholesale deal with no money or no credit. So get excited. We're getting ready to get started on that in just a moment. Well, hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the call today. We're glad to have you with us today with Connected Investors Wholesale Training. On behalf of Ross Hamilton, our CEO, I want to welcome you to the call. Again, this is Doug Mainers from the Connected Investors corporate offices in Wilmington, North Carolina. Today, we got a great topic. We're going to be talking about how do I control the contract on a wholesale deal with no money or no credit. Many times I get asked, individuals ask me, hey, Doug, how do you go ahead and wholesale without any money? And so we're going to talk about that today in detail. I am recording this, so I'll have it available as well for recording. And we'll look at a real-life example today. So I'm excited to be with you. Glad you're on the call today. We do have a question box, so don't hesitate to ask any questions today. If you have any questions, put them in the question box. We'll be glad to talk about those a little bit later. But again, we're glad that you're here. So let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? Well, before we do that, let me just say, first of all, you need to consult a real estate attorney. I am not an attorney, and I put a little joke in here. I don't play one on TV, right? But I'm not an attorney. So it's always important to consult with an attorney. Basically, what I'm going to be doing today is showing some real-life examples of what individuals do in terms of getting their contracts approved, get them accepted, how to control that contract, how to get somebody on board with that. So we're going to talk in specifics about that, but just wanted to refresh your memory that, I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV, but I am going to share with you what other investors have done in order to get their business up and get it rolling and get contracts out there and get things under contract. So I just want to preface by saying that always consult a real estate attorney when it comes to contractual measures. So that being said, let's talk, what are we going to talk specifically about? Well, how to make an offer with no money. We're going to talk about that, look at a real-life example today. We're going to talk about determining the offer amount. How do I know how much I want to offer? So we're going to determining the offer amount. That's going to be important. We're going to talk about contingencies. In other words, AKA, also known as out clauses, ways to get out of the contract. So if you can't find a buyer as a wholesaler, or maybe you're a fix and flip person, and you need to have an out because you found some problems with the house or whatever the case may be, we're going to talk about some contingencies or some out clauses you can put right into your contract. And, of course, contract time management. That's really important as a wholesaler, that you can control and manage the time that you need in order to get that contract assigned to another investor. And so that's going to be important to give you the time to get that done. And we'll talk about a real-life example, as I said, about that as well. So let's get started. Determining the offer amount is important. And really, here's the key. I did a training very recently on how to build a buyer's list using Connected Investors. I gave some really key strategies on how to put together a buyer's list in literally days. What took me years to do before Connected Investors, now you can do in days and weeks. So that training is phenomenal because once you have a buyer for your wholesale deals, then you can search for deals that match that buyer's criteria. So should that buyer, if you know they're looking for a specific deal, a specific profit amount on the back end when they sell that property, it's going to help you to know how to approach determining the offer amount. What I'm going to share today is just a general rule of thumb that many investors use. It's called the 70% rule, but this doesn't necessarily apply all the way across the bar because you may have some investors who are willing to buy properties that don't meet this rule. So you may have some that might even be stricter than this rule. It depends on who you're dealing with. But I share this because I want to just give you a general idea on how to approach this. So determining the offer amount, first of all, you're going to take, let's talk about the market value versus the after repair value. The ARV is after repair. Market value, the way the house sits, may be something totally different from what it's going to be once the house is fixed up, obviously. So just keep that in mind. We'll talk about the ARV, the after repair value. So if you look right here at this formula, in terms of determining what the offer amount should be. You take the after repair value of the property, the after repair value. So let's just highlight this a little bit. So you're going to take the after repair value. That's this amount right here. That's going to be whatever the property is going to be worth after you do, or the investor does, the rehab. You're going to find that by either having a real estate agent get you the comps, or you can use our valuation app. You can get a value report on that property, whichever you choose to do. So that's something you determine that value, and you're going to multiply that times 70%. So that's basically what you're looking at. Take the after repair value, for even numbers, let's say the house is worth $100,000 after repair value, times 70%, that's $70,000, but you still got to subtract out the rehab and holding costs. That might be another, say, $20,000. Maybe it needs $15,000 in rehab, another $5,000 in holding, and so that's $20,000 from that. That means the purchase price on that house right here is going to be somewhere in this scenario around $50,000, $50K. So that would be the purchase price that an investor is going to pay for a property that's worth $100,000, right? That's worth $100K, and the rehab is, say, $20K, right? The rehab's $20,000. So that means that $100,000 times 70%, right? $100,000 right here times 70% is $70,000 minus the rehab and holding. That's $20,000, gives you a $50,000 asking price. So that's what basically what the investor is going to be, what they want to pay for that property. Now, in your situation, you've got to decide what is your desired profit as a wholesaler. So you've got an extra step here as a wholesaler you have to do. So you have to take that purchase price of $50,000, right, the $50K. You've got to take that purchase price and subtract from that what it is you want to make. Now, as a wholesaler, let's just say, for example, you want to make $5,000. So that means the most you can pay for that property, or you can put it under contract for, is going to be $45,000. That's what you're going to need to get it for in order to wholesale it for $50,000, and then the investor will go ahead and put 50 plus 20 more. He'll have 70 in it. He sells it for 100. He's going to make approximately 30. So that just gives you the idea. You make 5, the investor makes 30. And that's just a kind of a real-life example of how this works. So that's a general rule of thumb. Now, let's say you have an investor who says, hey, if I could just make $15,000 on a deal like this, I'm going to be thrilled. So in this situation, if he's willing to make as little as 15, then your price down here, you can actually get properties that are even more expensive because you can add 15 to this number. So now you're buying them for 60, selling it to him for 65, assuming they need the same rehab, and they're still worth 100K. He's going to make 15. So that opens up maybe more properties that you can get because at a higher price point. So just find out what it is that investor, does the investor use the 70% rule, or does he just say, hey, as long as I can make 15 grand in a deal like this, I'm thrilled. So that's just a general rule of thumb on determining how to go about what the offer amount is on the property. So hopefully that helps. So find out from that investor, that buyer. If you don't have that investor, you don't know who he is, and you want to use the 70% rule, that's a good general rule of thumb. But if you have that investor, you know who he or she is, you know what they want to make on the back end, then you can alter this a little depending on what they're wanting to do. So that's your offer amount. Now, you have some apps that can help you determine that. You have the Fast Formulas app. If you have that, you can just plug this in and get the results. We have literally a formula there that you can plug in. You don't have to do the math. It does the math for you. So that's great. If you have that app, you can use it. If you don't, you can do it by hand, or you can pick up this app. I think it's check with us on that, and we can get it for you. It's available. Something else that can help you with the offer amount, there's a Success Library app training video, and one of those says working with real estate agents. Click into that Success Library and take a look at that. If you have this app, it teaches you how to work with agents, right? How to work with agents to determine the amount of the property. Now, if you have one of our Really Flip products, then you can go into that training and look at the find it, the fix it, flip it, into that training and do that. So that's what that's all about. And of course, you've got the free estimate here. The Contractor app gives you can have somebody come out and give you a free estimate on those repairs that need to be done. And that's really going to help you with that new investor, because then you can determine what it is, how much work needs to be done. So you're making an offer based on real life numbers here, and getting that contractor app available allows you to do that and find out how much is that rehab going to cost. Now, that investor may be able to get those done for less if he has his own crew, or he may pay a little bit more. But either way you slice it, basically, at least gives you a general ballpark figure of what those repairs are going to be. So when you put the house under contract, it's going to help you. So just to give you that idea. So that's determining the offer amount. Also, in determining the offer amount, you do have the Instant Savings app that could benefit you greatly in terms of saving money on repairs. Many of you have that. If you have that, you can go ahead and use that to save money on repairs by getting discounts at places like Lowe's, Home Depot, Sherwin-Williams, those type of places. And, of course, the Ask a Pro group. Many of you have access to the Pro Support app, which is the Ask a Pro group, where you can ask any real estate investing question. You get an answer from someone from our executive team, or maybe another experienced investor responds to that. So please use that app. Click on Community, and then Groups, and then Ask a Pro group. Community, Groups, Ask a Pro group, and ask any real estate investing question and get an answer. And, of course, you've got the BPO app. Now, again, in that Success Library, the one with the apple on it, we have training in there working with real estate agents where you can get those comps for free from an agent. But we also have the BPO app, or also called the app that gives you the valuation, right? The value report app. That's going to have somebody go out to the property and put together a beautiful report. There is a small fee for this. This is great if you're looking at a property 3 states away and you don't want to spend hundreds, maybe even $1,000 to travel out there, spend a couple of days, gas, food, lodging, to look at a property. You can have somebody who can do it for you, and they're going to give you a beautiful report with the broker price opinion, the BPO, and so that's something that you can utilize. Or if you have an agent, you're making a bunch of offers in a particular area, you might want to have an agent get those comps for free, and then you just give them a listing every once in a while. Let them list your property for sale when you finish it, or refer your investor to that agent. Say, hey, I'm going to refer every investor I wholesale property to, I'm going to refer them to you. Will you help me out with the comps? I mean, most agents are going to do that. So that's certainly going to help with that. And so that's just give you more in terms of determining the offer amount. That agent can really help you understand what that property is worth in that area, or get that broker price opinion. Either way you do it, that's certainly something that can certainly help. So don't hesitate to do that. All right, let's talk about some contingencies, okay? And then we're going to get into a real-life example of the things that I'm talking to you about. So contingencies are AKA, also known as out clauses. These are commonly used contingencies. These are, again, check with the real estate attorney. I'm not an attorney. An attorney can guide you on this, but this is what many investors use. So they'll make sure in that contract they have some type of contingency based on one of the following, or one or more of the following: loan approval, right? Partner approval, satisfactory inspection, satisfactory appraisal, the sale of another property, a different property, approval of the property use for what you want to use it for, due diligence period. All these are commonly used contingencies that investors use to put in a contract and give them an out should that, as a wholesaler, maybe you're not actually able to wholesale it, so you need to get out of the contract. That's going to come in handy. And, as a fix and flip person, obviously you get in there and find out, wow, there's a lot more here that needs work. Well, I'm not going to be able to make the profit that I thought I was going to make. It gives you that out. So all of these are great. Now, many states are now using a due diligence period. That's this one right here. Many states are using this right here to give you a reason to get out of that contract for any reason or no reason during a particular time period. You can get out of that contract. So either check the contract you're using or check with the state that you're in. I know in North Carolina, the Association of Realtors contract have a due diligence period built right into it. Sometimes you have to pay for that, and once you pay a couple $100, you get that 2 or 3 weeks due diligence. Sometimes you don't. The one I'm getting ready to show you, the example I showed you, I didn't have to pay anything for that. In fact, they're getting ready to extend it. I'll talk about that in a second. So that due diligence period is a good one to use because that gives you an out during a particular period of time for any reason or no reason. So just keep that one in mind. If you're, again, depends on your state. Every state's a little bit different, so you want to make sure you check that out. So these are common out clauses you want to have in your contract to give you an out should you not be able to wholesale that deal, right? Or if you're a fix and flip person or buy and hold, it gives you an out because you don't want to move forward for whatever reason. Maybe it needs more repairs than you thought, or it's not the intended use of a rental like you wanted to do, or whatever the case may be. So keep that in mind. Very, very important that you do that. Let's move forward. Let's talk about contract time management. Again, we talked about that due diligence period. This is something that comes in really handy. It allows you to get out of the contract, usually for any reason, up to a specific date. Again, that could be renegotiated. I just renegotiated that on this one I'm going to show you right now. I just renegotiated. And then the closing date. It also could be negotiable depending on the contract. You can ask for an extension for either one of these. Doesn't mean the seller has to give it to you, but you can ask for an extension and get that extension for the contract for that due diligence period closing date. And you always want to send that back. Make sure you get them to sign off on that change on the contract or that extension. That's something you want to make sure that you do. For those of you who have our Contract Genie app, if you don't have this and you need contracts, you need to get this. This app right here is phenomenal. It has every contract you need for real estate investing. I can't think of one it doesn't have. It may have some, but it has all the contracts there, and it's state specific. You choose the state you're doing business in. So if you need this app, I'm going to put my email address up here in a minute. You can email me and say, Doug, I need that Contract Genie app. Not only does it that, it does independent contractor agreements. It does things like you get your will done. I mean, these are important things. As you're building a business, you need to keep account and take care of it for a small fee. I think this is less than $100 one time to get this app. I mean, it is something that I would definitely take advantage of. You can use it over and over and over and over again with all different contracts. So definitely keep that in mind right there when it comes to managing your time. But you want to make sure you give yourself enough time during this due diligence period to get that property sold. To get it, when I say sold, I mean assigned over to another investor, right? To get it over to another investor. So you make sure you get, usually you want to negotiate as much time as you can, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever they'll give you. You can always close sooner, but you don't want to run out of time. So that's going to be important. Contract time management is important. What else do you want to consider when it comes to contract considerations? Here's some key things you want to remember. Number one, is that contract assignable? That's important. You better make sure that your contract reads that it can be assigned. If not, you need to make sure you change it so it does and have that signed off on. I'll show you a real life example of that in just a second. Number two, has the seller signed and dated it? If you're not working with an agent, you're working with the seller directly, make sure they sign and date, and make sure all the sellers, notice right here I said all the sellers, because in North Carolina, a husband can buy the property or a wife can buy the property. But when they go to sell it, husband and wife both have to sign. Ran into a situation just recently. Husband and wife were divorced, but they still had joint ownership of the property. We had to negotiate with the spouse to get them to sign. We had to actually pay the spouse to sign off on the contract. We had to give up, we had to split the proceeds. So each spouse got some of the proceeds on this seller. This was an individual seller. And I was actually wholesaling the deal, and we had to negotiate that. So long story short, make sure all the sellers have signed and dated the contract. If it's a will, maybe somebody, it's a probate situation, make sure all the heirs have signed. This is very, very important, who's the owner. Now, we have an app called the Title Wave app. Guys, for $130 or whatever it is, you can, $139 I think it is, you can have literally any contract. You can go ahead and have a title search done on a property. That's going to save you all the headaches of knowing, did all the sellers sign, is there any other problems, either the lien, judge, whatever. You're going to be able to figure that out real quick. So it's worth $100 to do that if you got a great deal. Now, you don't have to, but that app is also available. So if you're interested in that app, let me know, and I can get that for you as well. Have you allowed yourself enough time to market the property? In other words, with your due diligence period or your closing date or whatever it is, have you given yourself several weeks or whatever you can get, as long as you can, to market that property or market that paper, okay, market that contract to another investor, right? Get that note out there and let people see what's out there on that contract. So have you done that? Are there any back taxes owed? This is important. You get into a situation, same story, same deal I was wholesaling recently. Yeah, back taxes. So we had to go back to the seller and negotiate with the seller, say, hey, these taxes have to be paid. So very important. Earnest money, I know that you can put a property under contract without earnest money in North Carolina because the property is the consideration. But some states may require earnest money. You only have to give them $1, but you need to charge $10, or whatever. You may have to have that, but you need to check in your state to know, are you required to have earnest money? I know in North Carolina you don't have to have any earnest money. You can put a property in a contract without earnest money, the way I understand the law, and so you can do that. And then lastly, you might have to have a separate compensation agreement. In other words, when you assign that contract, you may want to have an invoice for an assignment fee that's signed by the investor and yourself that they're going to pay you. Either right then they pay you. If they don't pay you right away, you need to have something like an escrow invoice that can be paid at closing, that you submit it to the closing attorney and they pay you at closing on that transaction. So you can do a number of different ways. A lot of wholesalers want the money up front from the investor, or you can get paid when that investor closes on the property, but it needs to be a separate compensation agreement. You can set that up. Some investors, as part of their assignment contract, has the compensation built right into it. I don't really have a recommendation on that. I like to have something separate. I have a separate assignment contract that doesn't say anything about compensation. I do that on a separate invoice. So you can structure that however you want. But these are all contract considerations, things you got to consider when you're wholesaling. So I hope this is valuable information that's helping you as a wholesaler. If you want access to this tidal wave app, don't hesitate to reach back out to me. All right, let's talk about that. Before we get into my information, let's look at a real-life example. So I actually have a contract that I have. I'm going to jump over to that page. So give me just 1 second, and let's get over to take a peek at that contract so I can show you exactly an example of how you can go about structuring that deal. So give me 1 second. I'll get that pulled up for you, and we'll look at it. But, yeah, it's going to be important. Here it is right here. So basically on these contracts, it's going to be important. Now, I've blacked out some of the information here for confidential purposes, just so you can see. But you notice here, this is actually a Connected Investors, not Connected Investors, I'm sorry. This is a Real Estate Commission approved contract, okay, that we, the realtor contract, so to speak, that we offer. That I was just going to scroll down here and show you a couple things. So notice in here, a couple things I want to point out in this contract. This is a real life deal. I have this under contract right now. In fact, I'll show it to you really quick. Let me go over to my selling website, or actually I can go over to my portfolio. Here it is, the property right here. I'll click in there. We'll take a quick look at the page. This is the actual property I have available right now, Connected Investors. Now, I have a couple of investors that are all over this. They're interested in it. They're checking it out, doing their due diligence. So I still have it available because the first one that comes up with it, the money comes out with the money. But you notice I have it listed for $56,000, and you can see the property here. I put some specifics in here about it, so you can check it out. And I love Connected Investors because somebody can make you an offer right on the platform. They can message you. But this is the contract that goes with that property. Notice I've got the information. But one key thing is that this contract, notice I put the name of the company, my company, or assigns. Do that because I'm looking to assign this contract. So as the buyer, I put in there the name of my company or assigns. And so that's an important component. Again, check with the real estate attorney in your state to make sure that what you do is legal in your state. I'm just giving you an example here so you can kind of see how this works. So that's how you would set that up. And then, as you notice right here, as I scroll down, you see the price is $50,000. And you see I have it on my website for $56,000. That's my markup as a wholesaler. And then you can see, well, let's look at some dates. Now, notice what I did here. The initial earnest money, it says initial earnest money is payable. Notice I didn't put anything in there for the initial earnest money. Yeah, I did. So I said, no, I'm not going to put anything there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here where it says additional earnest money, and it's going to be paid no later than December the 17th, which is the end of my due diligence period. So in other words, I'm getting the entire due diligence period. Now, this is a secret right here on getting these things in a contract with no money, okay? And the seller agreed to it, is I was able to put this under contract with no earnest money because I'm not paying the earnest money until December the 17th, right? By then, I've got a buyer, and they're going to pay the earnest money. I don't even have to come out of my pocket. My investor is going to pay that, right? But that's what I'm saying, how you can set this up. I didn't give initial earnest money. I waited and said the earnest money, the additional earnest money is going to be paid on December the 17th. So that's just a little trick there. But I want to show you a way to get away from that. Now, did I still fill out? I still wrote a check for $500. I dated it for the 17th, and I sent back a copy of that with my contract, right, with the contract when I submitted it. But obviously, I didn't submit that check yet because I don't have to submit it until December 17th, and by the end, my investor will pay that. So I won't even be paying that out of my pocket. So I just want to make you aware of that. That's a neat trick right there. Now, as I scroll on down here, the escrow agent right here, I use my attorney. I was different in different states. This is my attorney right here that's holding the earnest money. When I do pay it, that's who will be holding the earnest money. Right now, I'm still holding that check because it's not due until the 17th. Notice right here, the due diligence period. This is key. This is what I was telling you about. We have a built-in due diligence period right in our contract, and it's effective to December 16th, 2016. So this is my due diligence period. So I gave myself plenty of time to get this property, get it out there, and get it marked. I've got 2 investors very interested in it. I think one's going to pick it up. And then I got my settlement date right here. This is the date that it's actually going to close, is December 30th. But what I did today, because one of our investors, he's trying to get somebody out there, a contractor, to look at the house for him. He should, he basically said, hey, can I have more time? So I actually went back to, this is actually a house that was listed with an agent. I went back to the agent and said, hey, I need more time for my due diligence. Is the seller willing to help me out and give me more time on my due diligence period? So right here, in this December 16th, I requested till December 23rd, and I just got a text back from the agent that said yes, that the seller said that is fine, that I can have. So now I just got myself another week of due diligence that's going to give me plenty of time to get this thing wholesale. So don't hesitate to go back and ask if you need. Now, if she said no, then I might be done. If I couldn't get it assigned by this date, then I got to move on. Maybe this isn't one I'm going to get done. That happens sometimes. It just depends on the house. I believe I'll get this one done. You can also, I'm also most likely going to be extending the closing date simply because of due diligence. If an investor picks it up, next week, and basically they're in a situation where then they got to close it in 7 days. They got the Christmas holiday in there. That's going to be a problem. So we'll probably smooth that out a week, and that should not be an issue as well. I think obviously the seller's excited about getting this property closed. So that's how you use the due diligence period to give you time to market this thing and get it out there in front of investors. Let me scroll down again. One more thing I want to show you right here in the middle of the page. It says, seller shall pay preparation of a deed and so forth and so on. The deed is made payable to. Notice I also put in here, or assigned. You see that? So once this is assigned to a new investor, then that's who the deed will go to their company or their individual, however they do it. But notice I put my LLC. Here's my LLC right here. I blacked out the name because I don't want to be advertised with service. I didn't want to do that, so I blocked that out. But I did put down or assigned, so that's under the transfer of deed. Again, check with the attorney in your state to make sure it's kosher in your state, but it's how it is here. And then as I scroll down, one other thing I want to show you, these contracts for the state of North Carolina are typically not assignable. Notice right here, it says this contract right in here, this contract may, and notice I've crossed this out. It says may not be assigned without written consent. But notice what I did. I went in and changed that not be assigned to, I crossed out the word not. See right here, I crossed out the word not. So now the contract reads, this contract may be assigned without the written consent of all parties. So that, and notice I had the seller initial and dated. I've initialed and dated it. We have that in here. And so it's saying that that contract may not be assigned without the written consent of all parties. But now it reads may be assigned. And so I can now assign this without any written consent from any other parties because we crossed out the word not. The seller agreed to that. And so now I can go assign that. So I want to just show you some of the things that you do. And notice I have this property tied up now for going on several weeks. I have a couple buyers interested. I got an opportunity to make $5,000 to $6,000, and I have zero money in this deal. So this is what I mean about being able to wholesale with no money. This is the way to do it. I just happened to catch this property right because this lady needed to sell this property. I actually negotiated her down. By the way, she was asking something like $57,000, $58,000. to this property. I got her down to $50,000, right? And this property is a retail. The ARV of this property is about 100 and 105, and it needs approximately 20 in work. So you see, the investor's going to be able to take this and go ahead and make some money with it. I would have done this if I just picked up another one. So I have another property I'm getting ready to rehab, so I couldn't do this one right now. But I got it under contract, so I'm not just going to say, oh, well, I got it under contract. Sure, I'm going to wholesale it. Yeah, and now I could go in and get funded for this and go ahead and buy it and rehab it. That's another option for me, which I haven't ruled out. But certainly, if I can wholesale it, move on to the next one, that's fine. I've got investors here looking for deals. It's a good deal. It's a cute house, brick house. You saw it right here on Connected Investors. There it is. Good-looking house. And so you kind of get the idea there, definitely. So that's how you can structure that contract to get you where you need to be. Very, very easy to do. And I want to make sure to show you a real-life example of something I have on Connected Investors right now and have investors that are interested in it. So take into account some of these things that we talked about, in terms of contract considerations. Let's go back and look at that one more time. Notice I've taken these into account on that contract we just discussed. Is the contract assignable? Yes. Have the sellers signed and dated? Yes. Have I allowed myself enough time? Well, not exactly. I thought I allowed myself enough time, but I went ahead and got an extension. So now I can check that as yes. Are there any back taxes owed? No. Do I have to do any earnest money? I don't have any earnest money in that. And I have a separate assignment contract ready to go as soon as we decide which of these two investors is going to pick this property up. So you can see real quick exactly how easy it is to wholesale that property and with no money, and there's a great example of how to do that. Now, granted, these are smaller prices, but if you're in California or some other, you might be talking, instead of 50, you might be talking 500,000. It might be the whole little thing. That's fine. But it works wherever you're at. This is a way that you can do that. So if you need more information on any of the apps that you've seen today, you can email me, dmayners@connectedinvestors.com. There's my email address. Don't hesitate to do that. I'm going to have you go ahead and email any questions that you have, so don't hesitate to send me an email. If you've got additional questions, I'll be glad to help you out with that and get you up and running. So go ahead and email me, dmayners@connectedinvestors.com. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. If you don't have my wholesale training series, I've got a 4-part wholesale training series I can get out to you. I've got training on how to build a buyer's list on Connected Investors. I got training on how to use Facebook to market for wholesale. I got all kinds of training. Just email me. I'll be glad to get those out to you so you can check those out. So again, glad to have you on the call today. Again, excited to be part of Connected Investors. I hope this has helped you understand how you can wholesale with no money and give you a real-life example of how that's happening. So again, glad to have you. Look forward to seeing you out there on the site, and you have a fantastic rest of the day.